Well, welcome back to Wednesday night Bible study. We've been off for a couple of weeks, but we're back and thankful for that. Tonight, we're going to kind of begin something new, not a prolonged study. This is just one of some that we might do, and they're not really connected to each other, at least for the next few weeks, I think. Um, but I want to talk to you tonight about a word that you may not have ever heard. It's the word grogger, Grogger. Now, I'm not going to tell you a lot about that until we come to the end of the study, but I wanted to just kind of impose that upon your mind. And I don't want you to get lost in your thoughts about the grogger and kind of miss our study. So just listen up, and we'll put all the pieces together. And I think when we get to the end of the story and the end of the Bible study, that you'll understand not only what the grogger is, but also you'll understand how to use the grogger even in your life today. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is just to show you the grogger. There it is. You can see it. Now, when I do my church study uh, today or tonight, then they'll be able to see this printed paper. You'll see it there. So you've kind of got an idea in your mind about what a grogger looks like, even if you don't know what it is. So to determine that and to see its purpose and use, and then how to apply it to our lives, we begin in the scriptures tonight in the book of Esther. That's an Old Testament book, and I want to give you a little information about it because we can't study the whole book tonight. But there are some verses that I will link together that will help you understand the situation and what Esther is all about. And if you don't remember, or if you've never studied the book of Esther, it's a book that involves the Jewish people. It involves the Israel, God's people. It's a story about a wicked man who really wants to annihilate the Jewish population and the nation of Israel. Now, this evil one, certainly is not the only one. We know that in Exodus, the Pharaoh wanted to do just that also. We come to modern times, and there's the Hitler, the Nazis, and then on and on. And now in the news every day is Iraq, Iran, and all of these Hamas, all of these that say that Israel does not deserve to exist, and they desire to annihilate them. So the book of Esther is a story about this, and it is connected to the grogger. So let's just look at some things, a little information that'll help you as we get into the verses. It's a book that the Jews have read all through the ages. Esther and Ruth are the only Old Testament books named for a woman, and the New Testament does not quote either one of them, along with the fact that it doesn't quote or allude to the Song of Solomon, neither to Obadiah or to Nahum. But the story of Esther lives on. It lives through even New Testament Christians. And let me just remind you that the New Testament says that when we are saved, when we are truly saved, when we put our trust in the Messiah, when we put our trust in the Christ, who is Jesus, then we become the real seed of Abraham. Now, the Jews say they are connected to Abraham because of blood kin. They are Jews by blood. But we understand in the New Testament, as Paul writes, that the true Jew is one who has faith in the Christ, in the Messiah, in the Lord Jesus Christ. We sing a song that says, "Ye chosen seed of Israel's race, ye ransomed from the fall." And then it's talking of the Christ, crown him Lord of all. So when we come to know the Lord, then we are Jewish. We are true Jewish because we have followed Abraham and we have believed the Lord. Now, the Esther account takes place somewhere between 483 and 473 BC, years before Christ. You take Abraham. Now, Abraham lived somewhere around 2100 or 20 to 2075 BC, some 2100 years before Christ. This is halfway or well over halfway up the journey, getting much closer to Christ. So this is Esther. Again, read by the Jews, celebrated by the Jews in a holiday called Purim. We'll learn about that. We'll connect that to the Grogger. So I'm going to begin my verses to read, and you've got your Bible open. You can turn to them as we get to them. If not, you can listen. This will help us set the stage for the Purim and for the celebration of Purim. We begin with Esther 2, verse 7 and verse 15. This man had a very beautiful and lovely young cousin, Hadassah. Now, that's Hebrew for Esther, who is also called Esther. When her father and mother died, Mordecai, that's this man, we just read those two words, this man, adopted her into his family and raised her as his own. Esther was the daughter of Abihail, who was Mordecai's uncle, and Mordecai had adopted his younger cousin Esther when her parents were deceased. Now, this is in Persia, and so Esther is part of the harem there with the king whose name is Xerxes. That's the Greek name for him. And it says that when Esther turned to go into the king, she accepted the advice of Haggai, a eunuch in charge of the harem. She asked for nothing except what he suggested, and she was admired by everyone who saw her. Now, in Esther 3, verse 1, sometime later, King Xerxes promoted Haman. Want to remember that name. Haman, the son of Hammedatha, an Agagite, to be the top noble, to be over all the other nobles. And so this made him the most powerful official in the empire. Verse 2 of that chapter 3, all the king's officials would bow down before Haman to show him respect whenever he passed by, for so the king had commanded. But Mordecai refused, remember that, to bow down and to show him respect. When Haman saw that Mordecai would not bow down or show him respect, he was filled with rage. Now, let me stop right there and just kind of make sure we're setting this up. All right. So Haman is the most powerful of the nobles. He's the most powerful official below the king in the empire. And all the king's officials would bow down to Haman when they were in his presence, but not Mordecai. Mordecai refused to do that. And so this set Haman in a rage against Mordecai. Now in verse 7, so in the month of April, during the 12th year of King Xerxes' reign, lots were cast in Haman's presence. The lots were called Purim. Now we're making a little connection with the Feast of Purim, to determine the best day and month to take action. The day selected was March 7th, nearly a year later. So you understand this rebellion of Mordecai refusing to bow down to Haman, and Haman is now enraged with this disobedience and the recognition of his nobility, that he set a date. Again, the scripture reads to take action, and we understand what the action would be, certainly death, and we're going to come across that. In verse 8, then Haman approached King Xerxes and said, there's a certain race of people scattered throughout all the provinces of your empire who keep themselves separate from everyone else. Their laws are different from those of any other people, and they refuse to obey the laws of the king. So it is not in the king's interest to let them live. Verse 9, if it please the king to issue a decree that they be destroyed, and I will give 10,000 large sacks of silver to the government administrators to be deposited in the royal treasure. In other words, if you'll give me permission to annihilate these Jewish people, I will pay to get that done. I will bribe you. I will bribe the treasury of the king for that. So the king agreed, confirming his decision by removing his signet ring and giving it to Haman, again, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. So the stage is set. Haman thinks that now everything is in place and that he is going to destroy not only Mordecai, but he's going to destroy the Jewish race. He is going to destroy what we would call today Israel. Now, in chapter 4, verse 7, here's Mordecai coming in, and things have to happen, but we want just to get the outline of the story so we'll understand. Remember, Grogger. That's our lesson for today. This helps us to understand it. So Mordecai told him the whole story, including the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasure for the destruction of the Jews. In chapter 5, verse 14. So Haman's wife, Zeresh, and all her friends suggested, set up a sharpened pole that stands 75 feet tall, and in the morning ask the king to impale Mordecai on it. When this is done, you can go on your merry way to the banquet with the king. This pleased Haman, and he ordered the pole set up. So now, again, they were to set a date. It was set almost a year ahead of time. Now they've got the pole, and they will impale Mordecai on that pole. That's his goal. In chapter 6, verse 6, Haman came in, and the king said, what should I do to honor a man who truly pleases me? Haman thought to himself, would the king wish to honor more than me? So his idea is the king asking him what he would do to honor him. So he's going to lay it on. Now let's look at verse 10. I kind of skipped all of that from verse 6 to verse 10, but here's the outcome of that. Verse 10, excellent, the king said to Haman, quick, take the robes and my robes and my horse, and do just what you have said for Mordecai, the Jew, who sits at the gate of the palace. Leave out nothing that you have suggested. So there's a kind of a switch right here. Boy, that's a slap in the face. That's mud in the eye, if you please. He had laid it on thinking he was the one who was going to be honored, and the king was asking what to honor or how to honor Mordecai, the Jew who sits at the gate. Now, verse 7, chapter 7, verses 6 through 9. Esther replied, or the king, Xerxes. This wicked Haman is our adversary and our enemy. Haman grew pale and fright before the king and the queen. This is at the banquet. Then the king jumped to his feet in a rage and went out into the palace garden. Haman, however, stayed behind to plead for his life with Queen Esther, for he knew that the king intended to kill him. In despair, he fell on the couch where Esther was reclining, just as the king was returning from the palace garden. The king exclaimed, "Will he even assault the queen right here in the palace before my very eyes?" And as soon as the king spoke, his attendants covered Haman's face, probably put it like a sack over his face, signaling his doom. Then Harbana, one of the king's eunuchs, said, "Haman has set up a sharpened pole that stands 75 feet tall in his own courtyard. He intended to use it to impale Mordecai, the man who saved the king from assassination. I'm sorry. Then impale Haman on it," the king ordered. So what Haman had decided to be the death of Mordecai, in turn, it becomes the very thing that Haman will find his death. So be careful. What goes around comes around sometimes, most times, and so it is here. Chapter 8, verse 2. The king took off his signet ring, which he had taken back from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. And Esther, queen, appointed Mordecai to be in charge of Haman's property. Chapter 9, verse 25. And when Esther came before the king, he issued a decree causing Haman's evil plot to backfire, and Haman and his sons were impaled on a sharpened pole. That's the story of Purim. That's the story of Hadassah, the book of Esther. Again, a plot to destroy the Jews, but we see the sovereignty of God, because he had promised Abraham by covenant that he would become the father of a great nation, and from that nation he would produce the Messiah, he would produce the Christ, he would produce Jesus, who would die as a lamb slain from the foundation of the world, it says in the Revelation, again, for the sins of God's people. So Purim is a Jewish holiday. It's kind of a national holiday. It's not really all that religious, that celebrate the miraculous events that took place in the book of Hadassah or the book of Esther. It is celebrated, Purim is celebrated by reading the Megillah, which means Esther, by giving gifts, by giving food to the poor, by celebrating in a banquet, a homecoming style eat event. All of this, again, the Feast of Purim happens every year. The Jews celebrate it because of the sovereign God who was faithful to his covenant to Abraham to see the Jews through, again, to produce the Christ child, and again, to see them through into eternity forever and forever. Now, let's look at the moral of this story. Let's get back to the grogger. You saw the picture, if you still have it in your mind. It looks like a wooden box with a handle on it. What you do is you hold the box, the handle, and turn it around like so, and it makes a noise. It makes a grinding noise. The Hebrew word for that is rashan, and it means a noisemaker as a grogger. It has a very unique and specific purpose in the life and celebration of Purim for the Jews. Because during the Feast of Purim, and the book of Hadassah is read, or the book of Esther is read, every time the name Haman is read, the one who tried to exterminate the Jews in ancient Persia, then the people will whirl their grogger, they will whirl their box around, this grinding noise, and they will drown out the name of Haman. So this Feast of Purim is known as the Feast of Esther, or even the Festival of Lots. Remember, they cast lots to see when the date would be that Haman would again fulfill death to Mordecai, who refused to bow down to him. And it celebrates the saving of the Jews from the ancient Persian empire, from saving them from annihilation. Now, we use the term Persia in the Old Testament, and it's there a lot. We see it a lot. And the modern day Persia now is associated with the name Iran. And you let your mind and news think of the news today, and again, still an enemy of the Lord. So again, we learn a lesson, and what is it? Well, the name Haman is a symbol of evil. So when you begin to be harassed with evil, persecuted with evil, then you drown that out with a different sound, with a different voice. So how do you fight evil? How do you respond? How do you overcome evil? Do you do it by evil? Overcome evil by evil? Do you hurt someone if they hurt you? Do you hate someone who hates you? Do you disrespect someone who disrespects you? Kind of an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Whatever they do, you'll do better back to them. That's not the way the scriptures teach us to drown out evil. It's not to stir the flames or stir the hatred and stir the bitterness. It is to use a different voice. It is to drown that out with a different voice. So the grogger holds the secret. When someone sins against you, use the grogger. Use a different voice. Use a different sound. So when someone persecutes you, do good to them. So we overcome evil by bringing forth a different voice, a different sound, which is the very opposite. You overcome the negative by bringing forth positive. You overcome the sound of darkness by bringing forth the sound of light. You overcome despair by bringing forth hope. You overcome hatred by bringing forth love. Now, we all have Haman sins in our lives. We have that. We've been guilty of that, but now we know how to correct that. We don't fight evil with evil. Don't fight fire with fire, is an old saying. So we use the grogger. It's a different sound to drown out the evil. Let me read a couple of verses and then we're through tonight. Psalms 95, verse 1. Come, let us sing unto the Lord. Let us shout joyfully to the rock of our salvation. Let us come to him with thanksgiving. Let us sing psalms of praise to him. Matthew 5:44, Sermon on the Mount. We're studying some of that, the Beatitudes on Sunday morning. But I say, love your enemies, pray for those who persecute you. Romans 12:21, don't let evil conquer you, but conquer evil by doing good. Words of Paul through the Spirit. Here's Paul again in 2 Corinthians 13:5, our last verse. Examine yourself to see if your faith is genuine. Test yourselves. Surely you know that Jesus Christ is among you. If not, you have failed the test of genuine faith. So you got a new term, more than likely, in your vocabulary. It's the word grogger. It is a sound different from the sound of evil. You have your own grogger. When evil surrounds or when evil approaches you, use your grogger. Ground out or ground out the sound of evil. Turn it to good. Turn it to right. Turn it to righteousness. Turn it to pleasing God. And that is, again, doing what is right. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Maybe it'll inspire you to read the book of Esther. If you've not done that lately, just read through that. It's a story, and you will enjoy that. And again, remember, the Jews celebrate this every year. It's a holiday, kind of a national holiday type thing for them. They really celebrate because God was sovereign, and God showed his sovereignty by remaining faithful to the covenant that he had made with their father Abraham, again, the father of the Jewish nation, the father of Israel, the father of the Jews. Again, not only through this time to bring the Christ, but again, he is prepared to save his people throughout all eternity. And we're part of that if we're believers. Well, God bless you, and we'll see you Sunday, Lord willing. And if not, we'll see you next Wednesday for Bible study. God's blessings again.